It takes some temerity for the prospective author to embark on yet another discussion of the concepts and main applications of mathematical finance. That is actually a direct quote from F. Knight, and it is exactly how the authors of our source material today kick off the preface to their massive work. They are well aware that the world of quantitative finance is already incredibly crowded, but, well, they stepped into the fray anyway. They brought that exact temerity because they spotted a glaring, unaddressed problem in how we actually learn about financial markets.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight into a structured journey through a topic that is highly complex but honestly deeply fascinating, unpacking the mathematical methods for financial markets. We're going to break down exactly how you build a bridge between the quiet, theoretical world of abstract math and the absolute raw chaos of real-world trading floors. So our source material for this explainer is the foundational textbook Mathematical Methods for Financial Markets, written by Monique Jeanblanc, Marc Yor, and Marc Chesney. It was published as part of the Springer Finance series, and let me tell you, this book is a true heavyweight in the academic world. Now, mathematical finance has a rich history stretching back over 100 years to Louis Bachelier, and this text serves as a modern cornerstone. It's built to challenge both students and seasoned practitioners alike. We're going to look at exactly how these authors structured this mammoth subject to actually make it accessible. Why should you care? Because understanding their approach solves that very real, very massive headache of trying to learn this incredibly complex subject. Here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, bridging math and finance. Second, the interlacing approach. Third, continuous versus jump processes. Fourth, breaking academic traditions. And finally, finance fueling future math. Think of me as your tour guide today, as we navigate the author's conceptual table of contents.
All right, Section 1, Bridging Math and Finance, Closing the Gap.
The authors recognize this deep, systemic divide in how the subject is traditionally taught, and it creates a hugely frustrating barrier to entry. It's essentially two different disciplines speaking entirely different dialects. Look at the left side. You have mathematically oriented presentations. These demand heavy sophistication in subjects like functional analysis. They're mathematically pure, sure, but notoriously difficult for financial practitioners to actually decipher and use on the job. Then, on the right side, you've got mainstream mathematical finance books. These are definitely more accessible, but they often lack rigorous depth. That makes them super frustrating for entering mathematicians who really want those precise, logical definitions. It's kind of like putting a theoretical physicist and a frantic day trader in a room together and asking them to build a car. So the big question is, how do you build a bridge across this massive translation gap?
Which brings us to Section 2, the interlacing approach.
This is the specific pedagogical solution the authors engineered to ensure both sides of the aisle can finally understand each other. The sheer practicality of this interlacing concept is just brilliant. It's the methodology of gradually introducing a financial concept at the exact same time as its relevant mathematical tool. Instead of forcing you to slog through 100 pages of dry, abstract probability theory before you ever even see a dollar sign, or, on the flip side, giving you finance theories supported by totally hand-wavy math, they intertwine them seamlessly.
Let's walk through how this builds a functional understanding, step by step. Step 1, you introduce the financial concept, say, the idea of arbitrage opportunities or pricing an option. Step 2, introduced right alongside it, you bring in the exact mathematical tool required to model it, like Brownian motion or Lévy processes. And then, step 3, you explore the basic properties of both of them together. By teaching both dialects simultaneously, you never lose sight of the why behind the math or the how behind the finance. It just makes sense.
Moving right along, Section 3, continuous versus jump processes.
Once they established their teaching method, the authors had to figure out how to organize a massive amount of technical content. This maps out the grand structural divide of the book into two distinct landscapes. Part 1 focuses entirely on continuous path processes, think Brownian motion and diffusions. This represents the real-time efficiency of markets, where prices move smoothly and adjust continuously to new information. But Part 2, that shifts entirely to discontinuous or jump processes, like Poisson and Lévy processes. This part tackles the harsh realities of default risks and ruin problems. A company going bankrupt doesn't happen on a perfectly smooth curve. It's a sudden, aggressive jump. By splitting the book up this way, the authors perfectly mirror the dual nature of financial reality, the smooth, everyday trading, and the sudden, unpredictable shocks.
All right, Section 4, breaking academic traditions. To make this interlacing approach actually work for the reader, the authors had to be, well, a little bit rebellious. So, I want to pose this question directly to you. How does a highly technical, dense mathematical textbook consciously break academic tradition. What rigid rules do you think they had to bend to make this accessible?
Well, here is exactly how they pulled it off. First, when things get a bit too deep into the weeds, they provide only the essence of highly technical arguments. They'll send you to external references rather than bogging down the text. Second, they use forward references extensively to map out exactly where concepts are heading. And third, and honestly, this is a massive departure from the norm, they duplicate key topics. For instance, they present Ito's formula repeatedly in various contexts. First for continuous path semi-martingales, then Poisson processes, then Lévy processes. The crucial point here is that they are prioritizing your convenience as a learner over rigid academic conventions. They want you to easily access the formula you need, right in the context you are studying, without forcing you to flip back 200 pages.
But to achieve this level of depth, they also had to be highly self-aware of their boundaries. They explicitly list what is missing from their text. They intentionally skip the term structure of interest rate models like HJM, optimization of wealth and transaction costs, discrete time models like Arch and Garch, and fractional Brownian motion. By laying out these missing pieces, we can clearly see the author's rigorous scoping. They consciously chose profound depth in continuous and jump processes over creating some shallow, exhausting encyclopedia that tries to cover absolutely everything.
Furthermore, they don't pretend that math exists in a vacuum away from real-world consequences. Look at this quote from the preface. Nowadays, the market is in quite bad health, as it suffers badly from illiquidity, lack of confidence, misapprehension of risks. Revisiting previous axioms in such a changed situation is a huge task. See, the authors started writing this book back in 2001, relying implicitly on the good health of the market and its natural tendency toward efficiency. But by the time of publication, the 2007 financial crisis had fundamentally altered the landscape. While we aren't here to take any sides on the political or economic causes of the crisis, it's absolutely fascinating to see how the authors impartially acknowledge that market axioms have to change when reality shatters the illusion of perfect efficiency. And finally, Section 5, Finance, Fueling Future Math. This is where we find the profound philosophical takeaway of the source material. Finance doesn't just borrow from probability theory, it actively contributes to the foundations of the stochastic world. People often think finance simply takes pure math off the academic shelf and applies it to make money. But the authors highlight a deeply symbiotic relationship here. The unique, highly complex questions raised by financial markets actually necessitate the use of advanced probabilistic analysis, like complex martingales and stochastic calculus. For example, Basel processes, which are used heavily in financial modeling, are now at the core of stochastic loaner evolutions in pure math. Finance is quite literally forcing mathematicians to invent entirely new tools, expanding the very foundations of the mathematical world.
Which brings us to our final thought. If finance is already reshaping the foundations of mathematics, what undiscovered mathematical realities are hiding in tomorrow's market crises? It's a really provocative concept to ponder. As human behavior and markets evolve, the math just has to evolve right alongside it. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. I hope this structured look into the mechanics of mathematical finance has left you with a clearer understanding and a strong curiosity to dig in and learn more.